Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month edition of the DSSC Insights series, the last edition before Christmas. And the title for this webinar is Unlocking Synergy and Value in Data Spaces. Thank you very much for connecting to this webinar. Alongside the usual introduction, I will also be very happy to extend to a very important community announcement. So today's webinar lineup will have the following speaker. We will start with an introduction from Gianfranco Cecconi, the Executive Director of the Data Space Support Center. We will then deal with a presentation from Maaria Nuutinen, Senior Principal Scientist at VTT, about unlocking the power of synergy in data spaces. We will then move on to a presentation on value creation with data spaces with Cristoph Mertens, Head of Adoption at International Data Spaces Association. And then we will have a Q&A at the end, at the very end of the webinar. So stick around for all the interesting questions about the topic. Just a small note, we will, of course, have the Q&A, but we will at the end of the webinar, but you can ask questions throughout the webinar using the chat function in Zoom. Any unanswered question will be dealt with at the end. So again, stick around because we will try to deal with all the questions that you will ask us. And now just a first community announcement. I'm very happy to announce that our colleagues from the Simple team at the European Commission are launched the registration for the Simple annual community event, which will take place on the 30th of January at the Outer World in Brussels. In order to register, you can scan the QR code in the slide, and then you will be redirected to the right page to get set up for the registration. Now, moving on to more housekeeping items. The first one is that this webinar is recorded. You can watch this webinar and all the previous webinars recording on our YouTube channel. You can scan the QR code in the slide to access our YouTube channel. Also, you will be able to access all the videos from the current from this year Data Space Symposium, which took place in Darmstadt in March 2024 on the YouTube channel. So don't forget to visit the scan, and you will have access to all the video that we released so far. Most importantly, the most effective way to stay up to date with everything that we do is the newsletter from the Data Space Support Center. Don't hesitate to subscribe to a newsletter by scanning the QR code or clicking on the link. And then this is again the easiest way to stay current to everything that we do, from technical deliverables to all the event. Which, speaking of event, I am very happy to announce to spread the save the date for our annual flagship event, which will take place at the Hilton Hotel in Warsaw from the 11th to the 12th of March 2025. We are very excited to bring the third edition of the Data Spaces Symposium, which is the world's largest event on data spaces. Every year, the event gets more and more established. Last year, we had 3 days with over 900 participants, and this year we are aiming to cross 1,000 participants. So we're looking forward to have you there. The registration will start very soon, and the event will not be possible without you. So we are looking for your involvement. You can see that the event is already being prepared, and scan the QR code in the slides to access the event website and see sponsorship packages, opportunity, program that we are releasing, more info on the ticketing and logistics. So please don't hesitate to visit the website. And if you have any questions, you can write to us at events@dssc.eu, and we will answer to any queries you might have. So my introduction was longer than usual, but now the introduction is over. I am happy to give the floor to Gianfranco. I will stop sharing the presentation here. And then Gianfranco, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Anna. And thanks to all of you to joining once again to today's Insights Series webinar. In case you didn't have the bad luck to know me already, my name is Gianfranco Cecconi. I'm the Executive Director of the Data Space Support Center for Project Coordinator Professor Boris Otto. In the little time I've left from the DSSC, I'm the Chief Solutions Officer of the International Data Spaces Association, like Cristoph in the room. We are a non-for-profit for the development of data spaces practices and technologies and the creators of the Data Space Protocol. Today, we will forget for 1 hour or so about the technology of data spaces to instead talk about some of the business aspects of that collaborative data sharing ambition the data spaces were conceived to deliver. First, DSSC's colleague Maaria Nuutinen of VTT will share the first results of DSSC's exploration of a theme that is a bit more exotic than others in our circle. That is what we call cross-data space interoperability. That is, what are the modalities available to organizations participating in different data spaces to share data between them without having to go through, let's say, the complication of joining the other's data space and so on. I can read your mind as I speak. Perhaps you're thinking, but that is not really a problem, because when the data space protocol becomes a standard and the implementation of the connectors becomes compliant and mature, and the legal frameworks between different socio-political regions are aligned, and all the policies are machine readable, and the identity frameworks are federated, this list is becoming a bit too long, right? So yes, the ambition is that we get there and we have full automation, and the technology and the processes and the knowledge we have will make this happen very, very seamlessly. But in the meantime, we need, let's say, tactical ways by which we can make this happen without waiting for all of these bits to fall into place. Maaria will give us some insight of how that can happen. We will go then to Cristoph. Cristoph Mertens will present a paper that IDSA members have written from their experience and released to the public to illustrate how the concept of business model applies to data spaces, whether you are the organization that builds and operates the space, or the service providers that make their services available in the space, or the participants that join to find the data they need or offer the data they hold. It is actually a strong belief of mine personally that the lack of a minimum literacy in data economy and business is actually a stronger obstacle to adoption than the maturity of the technology or how scary legislation can be. So let's see what Maaria and Cristoph have to share with us. And remember that DSSC is a community-driven exercise. Next time you may be here on stage presenting, so don't just be spectators of DSSC, but participants, like in data spaces. So Maaria, the floor is yours, and we'll meet again later for the Q&A.
Thank you. I trust that you can see my slides now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so good afternoon. As said, my name is Maaria Nuutinen, and I'm working as a senior principal scientist at VTT Technical Research Center of Finland. And it's really great to be here today to share our thoughts on how to unlock the power of synergies in data spaces. Synergy is a key driver in the vision and development of European data spaces and data markets. And this presentation is based on the recent discussion paper, Data Space Synergies, which explores the crucial role of synergies in growth and evolution of data spaces, focusing on how these synergies could play out across different data spaces. This work was a collective effort shaped by the contributions of many DSSC experts and insight gathered from various workshops and collaboration within the broader network of stakeholders. I want to thank everyone who has already helped us to navigate this fascinating yet very complex topic. The work is not yet done, and this paper aims to encourage the deeper discussion about how synergistic approaches can accelerate the development of data spaces. So let's begin by providing an overview of the content tackled in the paper. In the introduction, we set the scene of living with multiple data spaces and provide basic definitions. In the conceptual framework section, we tentatively defined the components and elements that facilitate synergies, showing how to build synergetic systems across data spaces. The Synergies in Data Spaces Evolution section explores how synergies evolve throughout the data space lifecycle and highlights the importance of ecosystem perspective. This paper also addresses the impact of synergies from various perspectives, user, societal, and human, highlighting the broader implications of cross-data space collaboration. And finally, the paper concludes with some insights on how these synergies can shape the future of data spaces, driving innovation, economic growth, and sustainability. Synergy between data spaces can be defined as mutual benefits, gained efficiency, and increased impact of two or more data spaces working together. So in other words, synergies arise when data spaces collaborate, resulting in outcomes that are more impactful than if they were working separately. Additionally, we state in the paper that synergies between data spaces can be enabled by common practice, communication concept services, and/or components which increase data space interoperability and enable harmonized processes of using different data spaces. To sum it up, synergy can be seen as the enhanced value and impact generated by combining and integrating data, insight, and capabilities from multiple data spaces. This leads to outcomes that are far greater than simply adding up the individual contributions of each base. So, why should data space developers care about cross-data issues and synergies when there's already so much to do just to get one data space up and running? The prevailing expectation is that instead of consolidation, all data spaces in a single entity, we will see multiple data spaces emerging around different domains and business ecosystems. So here we have a few key points to consider. The first one is perhaps self-evident. So challenges of the single data space. It cannot meet all the needs or serve the broad range of users and use cases effectively. With diverse requirements across sectors, it's essential to have multiple coexisting data spaces that can serve different needs while integrating with each other. So many real-world use cases require data and services from multiple data spaces. This is where synergies between spaces are crucial for successful outcomes. The success of European digital single market depends on creating effective interoperability between these multiple data spaces. And what I think is one of the most important issues is that most users will need to interact with and participate in multiple data spaces simultaneously, collaborating with different partners and ecosystems. And there is a real risk that companies involved in multiple data spaces face complex management challenges due to overheads of handling parallel solutions, making it really important to focus on synergies. The paper further emphasized the innovation, systemic changes, and holistic solutions enabled by cross-data space collaboration. These can be called transformative impacts based on the achieved synergies between data spaces when cross-data space collaboration is effectively implemented. Here are some key impacts outlined. So first of all, economic impacts, such as opportunities to create innovative applications, services, and business models, or enhanced data sharing, increasing the competitiveness of European companies globally and supporting the creation of digital single market for data. And producing common assets like standards, governance frameworks, and interoperable technical solutions that reduce cost for data providers and users. We can also expect environmental benefits like support for Green Deal and new sustainability solutions, for example, agriculture, energy, climate spaces, providing together insight to reduce emissions and optimize resource usage. Societal benefits, for example, data sharing across spaces will allow for more informed policymaking and efficient public services, improve access to resources and services, and support data-driven solutions to address crises such as pandemics or climate change or energy shortages. What I think is really important also is enhanced user experience, such as creating consistent and user-friendly interactions across data spaces, reducing complexity and thus improving transparency for individuals and organizations. One of the expected impacts is to strengthen Europe's position in the global data markets by creating interoperable, trusted, and sovereign data ecosystems. Harmonized trust frameworks and governance mechanisms can promote more secure, ethical, and fair data sharing. Sectoral problem solving can lead to more holistic solutions to complex challenges that require data from multiple domains, such as urban planning using mobility, energy, and climate data. And finally, building a resilient data ecosystem which benefits from the network's effects and ensures that data spaces evolve together, adapting to emerging technology standards and use cases. But how to reach these impacts? The paper emphasizes that achieving the transformative impacts of synergies requires what we call synergy by design approach. This means embedding interoperability, trust, and collaborative governance into data spaces from the very beginning. Synergies must be considered, I would say even prioritized, at every stage of data space development, from design to operation. So the core message here is that synergy should be built into data spaces from the beginning, even when the benefits are expected to emerge later. This ensures stakeholders can navigate the complexities of data space development and really drive seamless data exchange. The cornerstone of this process is trust. In all collaborative environment, trust has a deeply human aspect. It involves building relationship, understanding mutual goals, and fostering a culture of openness and reliability. However, trust is not just a feeling. It is a result of intention, commitment, agreement, transparency, and liability. So this mechanism of trust creation should be essentially the same or similar in all data spaces, as they form the core on which the other synergies can be built. So by prioritizing trust, we ensure that all participants feel secure and valued, which is fundamental for effective and sustained collaboration. What is also important and we emphasize in the paper, is that data spaces must evolve to meet changing technological advancement and business needs. This evolutionary perspective is critical for the long-term sustainability of data spaces and can be supported by anticipating future trends and ensuring adaptability during the development. We could still look at this topic a little bit closer. This slide outlines the key requirements and enables to achieve the transformative impacts of synergies between data spaces. So synergy by design approach and trust mechanism I already mentioned. Common assets and tools are of course important, such as open standards and software and reusable building blocks. Harmonized legislation, but also incentives for interoperability to encourage investment in cross-data space collaboration are needed in context of policy and regulatory support. Further, cross-data space governance models involving stakeholders in shaping governance and operation rules and aiming to user-centric design are essential. Then related to evolutionary approach, continuous adaptation, meaning that frameworks and tools should also be updated to accommodate new technologies and use cases. Also, positive network effects can be enhanced by fostering collaboration and participation to create feedback loops that amplify synergies over the time. For synergies to reach their full potential, we must reduce unnecessary barriers to data sharing. For example, minimizing interoperability costs through shared resources and cost sharing mechanism, and balance specialized solutions with common frameworks to maintain flexibility while promoting synergies. Also, trustworthy human-centric data practices that allow individuals to control their data to foster trust and participation, ensure human representation in governance, especially when personal data is involved, or use intermediaries to simplify individual data control and enhance trust can be key enablers here. And finally, technical, thematic, and operational interoperability as a foundation. Interoperability is crucial for enabling synergies between data spaces. It refers to the ability of different data spaces to exchange and utilize data seamlessly and effectively. In practical terms, interoperability involves harmonizing data model standards, protocols, and governance frameworks across data spaces. And this harmonization ensures that data can flow, integrate, and be used across various systems. The main goal of interoperability is to overcome the fragmentation of data spaces. Without it, data sharing can become isolated and inefficient, limiting the potential for broader impact. By enabling interoperability, we ensure that data spaces within Europe can collaborate efficiently, allowing for seamless data exchange, value creation through integrated insight and services, and realization of envisioned benefits for individual, business, and society. So ultimately, data space interoperability is the foundation that makes synergies possible. It is a key enabler that allows us to maximize the value of data sharing and reuse on a much larger scale, driving the success of European data markets. Here we outline the key areas we are currently working on, focusing on how to incorporate cross-data space interoperability in the DSSC asset. As a first step to the blueprint, but after blueprint version 2.0, we also plan to incorporate the topic into other assets, co-creation method, and design principles in order to really provide key components that support cross-data space planning and guide the practical implementation of cross-data space collaboration. You can see the list of the planned topics we aim to cover. We are working on the European Data Spaces Interoperability Framework. It's similar to the European Interoperability Framework, but in the context of data spaces, not public services. And we would like very much to continue the co-creation. So we are eager to hear about your experiences, lessons learned, and also challenges faced. Your insight will help us to make us guide others more efficiently. So let's be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maaria. I see some questions are going on in the chat. Please don't hesitate to ask your questions. And on this note, I'm very happy to leave the floor to Cristoph.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Let me replace current share. There we go. So yeah, thank you for this talk. I think there were already some very important aspects in your presentation. Let me try to switch to an angle that is much more focused on the business of data spaces and the business within data spaces. As Gianfranco already said during his introduction, this is a paper that was written by members of our IDSA community. So I'm just the messenger, so to say. Even though I'm not an economist, I'm more from the technical side. When I first was introduced to the general outline of what we then brought to the paper, I thought this is something that we really need to write down, and I would like to share with you what we brought to the paper. So in case you're of the kind that you like to wait until Netflix brings out a movie for a book, this would be the spoken version of the paper now. In general, I think, as I saw here from the participants list, a lot of you are also in the data space topic for quite some time. So about the state of play, that's nothing that I have to really introduce to you. What I want to point us to is more the aspect of that, even though with an impressive list of projects out there that are in the mission to build data spaces and offer services to the broad community in order to make us grow and hit the early majority market, there seems to be this paradox of business model. So is any of these examples already at a point where we can observe that they are making tons of money? Are they driving a successful business? And if so, what is the business model for a data space? What is a good business model for data spaces? And in order to get closer to an answer, let us run through some basic essential concepts, and I will go through this rather quickly because I don't think that I'm presenting something completely new to you. In case of one second, in case of business models, we know already models from economy since quite some time. This aspect of, if you want to come to a business model, please describe who you are, what it is that you have to offer, to whom are you offering this, and how are you doing this, leading to a cost revenue structure. That's something we know since quite some time. The other thing, business data spaces, is also something that we described, especially as IDSA and the broader community, and in DSSC we refined it now, what a data space is. At the end, We're looking at a secure and sovereign sharing of data, and I think it was presented before quite well. Interoperability plays a significant aspect, but at the end, it's all about those who provide data and those who consume data. So far, so good. But what does that mean in terms of value? The actual value is not in one of the components that you find in a data space. The value is not in the participant itself. The value really lies in the use cases that are dealing with data. So a data set by itself just starts to have value once it is put to context, which in terms of data spaces is what we refer to as use cases. And there are many examples out there from different angles. So in logistics context, you could think about positional data and capacities that bring you to a synchro model route planner, or very well known from the automotive context, for example, with Catena-X, company mission reports that then can end up in end-to-end supply chain emission information, or also the data product passport that they are dealing with. Actors' perspective. So is that what I described now not really enough? Is it enough to talk about the use cases? Actually, the challenge is that a data space is not a single thing. It's not the platform. It is different things that come together. So we have governance authorities, an organizational perspective, sometimes also intermediaries. We heard about that now in the talk before. We have different kinds and a variety, a plethora of participants. And to work you towards an example here with Catena-X that we also described roughly in the paper, you have different kinds of organizations of all kinds of sizes from the supply chain with many different use cases. So we have many players, and therefore I think already one finding taken beforehand, we are actually not talking about the one business model here. It's very clear if you look at this landscape. So if you combine these two aspects of, we have understood what data spaces are, we have a model to describe data spaces. Just to underline here my sentence, we are looking at many different business models depending on the role that each participant, each component takes within a data space. But let's look a bit deeper into two aspects. So what does this business model topic mean for the two main roles, participants, but also for the infrastructure, and starting with the participants. So usually you can say in most scenarios that we are aware of, the benefits are with the consumers. So they are consuming data. For example, by doing this, they reduce their costs, they improve their data base in order to have higher transparency, for example, and the risk is and the costs are with the party that provides the data, losing, in worst case scenarios, control over the data, which is something that we of course want to prevent with certain mechanisms. One aspect, in case you see such an imbalance between the consumer and provider, is to set up appropriate pricing schemes that help to turn the downside a bit into the favor side for the provider of data. For the infrastructure part, the story looks like this. So we have, as we know, the provider and consumer side. In case of business models in networks, we have things like positive cross-site networks effect. You can think about eBay. So in case of eBay, the value in the data ecosystem, in the service world, gets higher the more offerings you can find there. It doesn't help just to have enough users. It's really important to have enough offerings. So that's a cross-site network effect. We also have same-site network effects with a simple example of telephones. So the telephone network is more valuable the more people participate, independent of if they want to talk or listen. That reminds us in general of what we already know from platform business models. So value creation as a two-way continuum where both aspects like cross-site and also same-site network effects come to place, and this is a effect that gets higher and higher, and the value raises, is something we know from platform business models, and it's tremendously different from linear creation of value, where you have some R&D, then some provider side comes up, then a bit of marketing is done, and a consumer side is identified as a linear process. This is different in data spaces, just as in platforms as well. And actually, we're looking at a hen and egg problem, leading us, so inspired from the platform business stories, we can get inspired also for scenarios that are applied to platforms in order to kickstart this business. So who receives some initial funding in order to make the entire ecosystem attractive? So do we have enough data in an ecosystem to attract the side of service providers, or vice versa? Do we have enough services within this ecosystem in order to make it attractive for people to share actually their data and process the data with the existing services? So we can learn a lot from what has been done already in the past in platform business models. So let us look into the business model aspects for this multi-sided infrastructure here. So this model with who, what, to whom, and how is well known. In current scenarios that we are aware of, most of the times when you look at the who, we have a lot of public actors and involvement looking for the societal and economical value in this setup. And if we then look to whom the different services are and data are provided, this is often a thing where public funding is part of the business model. So the data spaces, especially from the early days, initially were looking for funding opportunities from the Commission or also national governments in order to be successful out there. So it's a project-based setup with ongoing subsidy in a lot of cases. For those of you who have participated in the Gaia X Summit a couple of weeks ago, you already were able to see that examples are also out there where when the funding ends, also the business opportunity can end. That's of course the worst case scenario, and we are looking here to push for business models that are more sustainable. But in general, this is currently what is happening. And how this is provided, we can look at development costs and operational costs at the same time. On short term, the setup of data spaces leads to an imbalance. This is really not what we're looking for. It leads to higher costs and an effort to implement the right infrastructure, to create interoperability like presented before, and to come to the value that is promised in the upfront created use case. But on long term, due to the economy of scale effect and the reuse of the infrastructure, the data products, the entire setup that is done after setting up the very first use case, the benefits can show. So actually, we need to have this long-term perspective here in order to see that we also are able to create synergies between the different use cases. And I think this is the perfect link back to the presentation that we listened before. So in a nutshell, are we looking at one business model? I think I made it also clear during my talk. Due to this complex setup, plethora of participants, multi-sided infrastructure providers, and also organizations that participate in this complex ecosystem, that we in a reduced complexity know also from platform economy. We are not looking at one business model. This is totally different from what we have observed in the past, and therefore we need to be prepared for also creating more than one business model for data spaces, depending on the role that we own in such a setup. And this was really my try to wrap it up quite quickly, in case you're interested in more details, in also more examples. So I teasered a bit the Catena X ecosystem, the Catena X data space for you. In the paper, you will also find Smart Connected Supply Network and the mobility data space as examples with some more written, in some more written form. Feel free to explore it over the Christmas holiday season. Or also afterwards, and get back to us. We're glad to discuss with you on this very content, but also on future outtakes for the topic of business models. And with this, I hand over to either you, Anna, or to Gianfranco. I think it's you, Anna. I see you already on screen.
We're both there. Thank you very much. Thank you, Cristoph. Thanks again, Maaria, for the presentation. So now it's time to do a little Q&A at the end. Before waiting for someone to break the ice, I wanted to check with you, both Cristoph and Maaria, if you could, if it's possible to redirect the audience with some relevant links to all the materials that you published. So I think maybe Gianfranco would like to already posted something in the chat, but I will start with you, Maaria. Where can the audience learn more about what you shared, and how can they delve deeper into the topic?
Yeah, Gabriela already shared the link to the data space Synergies, but we also have a recent blog post that is named the same as this topic today. So unlocking the power of synergies in data spaces. So that's a kind of the summary of the paper.
And Maaria, in case instead we want to contribute to future work, because consuming is too easy, right? Where do we go and do the writing?
Yeah. So we are aiming to provide content to the next blueprint. So there is a very good opportunity to really contribute, and we are also open different kind of co-creation possibilities here. So just please contact us, and we can continue there.
Okay, so let's say the default choice is trying to get your way into the expert groups of the DSSC, something that, by the way, we should reiterate the invitation to anybody. It's not that easy. You need to have some kind of glamour and skills, but of course you're welcome. Well, the same question for Cristoph, right? So what happens next after this paper? Because of course the blueprint will integrate elements of Maaria's work, but in that case it's more of an IDSA kind of initiative there. Are you planning to perhaps to contribute into the blueprint? Have you thought about this? Because there's demand for business cases discussion as well around.
Absolutely. Right? Yeah. So as the community might know, but also maybe not, IDSA itself is, so I'm not the author of this document. I'm always relying on the contribution of our members. So also the question on how will this continue? Will there be an update? Will it be a next version that fills some gaps? So I could imagine that, for instance, the paper is not talking about concrete numbers. It's not leading you to concrete ROIs that you might find or not in data space scenarios, but I would love to know about it. But since I'm not the author, I'm really looking for people who want to drive this to the next level. I'm glad to support writing processes, bringing people together. So someone who has a nice framework, for instance, but is lacking a use case that he could work this framework on. I'm glad to brainstorm with the community out there for different scenarios. And in either case, the contribution of content to the DSSC work is something that we're driving So I'm looking forward to see where we can find the right spot within DSSC, maybe even in the blueprint, to position the frameworks for business models. Like I said during my presentation, none of what you read there is invented by neither Sophie Verbrugge, who is the main author, nor someone from IDSA. So we all know business model canvas since a couple of decades. We know data spaces as also described by the blueprint. So I guess it's natural to just bring the puzzle pieces together here in DSSC as well.
And I'm sorry to insist always on this, the ones who follow this series know that, but this content really is created by you. So, and the industry association, the RTOs, they are great, but they cannot do everything by themselves, particularly in an area of knowledge that are still relatively new like this one. We really need to hear from the ones who have experience from the field, different opinions, way to make the content as robust as possible before we can feel comfortable disseminating to the larger public. This stuff does not write itself, right? And Anna, I see there are actually questions coming, so perhaps we have some engagement.
So there are a couple of questions here. So thank you, Cristoph. Thank you. Also, Cristoph, you shared already the paper in the chat, so I invite the audience to have a look. And also to have a look at the DSSC website, because you will find all the resources there, how to contribute to what we do, all the blog posts that Maaria mentioned. So please feel free to have a look. So we have the first question from the audience, which is, how do you see the role of IT development companies that develop data space components? For example, a commercial offering of an authorization register. I believe that if they can make a profit in this world, then we will extend our data space ambassadors.
Yeah, I guess this is for Cristoph, probably.
Cristoph, I would say, yes. Want to take it?
Sorry, I was reading in between. Could you?
We're going to the next one already.
Yeah, I'm already 2 questions ahead. No, could you please?
Do you want me to repeat the question again?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you see the role of IT development companies that develop data space components?
Yeah.
For example, a commercial offering of an authorization register. Like, I believe that if they can make a profit in this world, we will extend our data spaces ambassador.
So, as someone who was dealing almost since the beginning of IDSA with the topic of adoption, I can say all offerings are more than welcome. I'm always happy if I see someone out there providing entire data space offerings or parts of it. So making it easier for the participants, the consumer market, to step into this. At the very beginning of the data space journey, I remember that we really thought, yeah, the concept is so easy, the architecture is well described, every company out there just can read it and build their own connector, and we will be fine. That was a bit naive, I have to say. In the meantime, we know much better. Most companies don't want to know what's under the hood. They don't want to know what's really how the architecture looks like, how the different mechanisms function. They just want to be sure that things work. And that's also looking at the curve that I showed at the very beginning of my presentation, clear that if we want to go up the hill, we need to be at a point where easily consumable data space offerings are available. So that is one part of the answer. Every offer is more than welcome and celebrated also. On the other hand side, when you look at what is offered at this point in time on an international, on a global scale, this sometimes leads to heavy discussions. So if you imagine an offering here from the European market is presented in the Asian market, in Japan, as an example, the Japanese are not waiting for these offerings really, and especially because these offerings are created by non-Japanese companies in a non-Japanese environment under non-Japanese legislation. They are suspicious at the beginning. We all know, so looking deeper into this architecture and talking about governance, policies, etc., that actually what this data space infrastructure will provide can be applied to any kind of local governance. But of course, the feeling can be different. So I think, yeah, maybe this is not even contradicting my first statement that every offering is welcome. Maybe it's even making this much stronger by saying we need much more of these offerings from all parts of the world, from all kinds of companies, in order to, at the end, have a globally scaling community, globally scaling data spaces that are, so like Maaria presented, interoperable with each other. That would be a long answer to this short question.
If I can add to that, I believe it's just some of the businesses perhaps are a bit shy. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when any kind of digital proposition was considered a wild idea, right? And that was probably 20 years ago, and not that many. So we're just on a later wave of that same digital transformation and the same kind of understanding of the business models and the pricing of it and the how to engage with the customers needs to develop over time. I'm not worried. I'm not an optimist by nature, but I'm not worried either. So the invitation for our friend in the audience is just to be an entrepreneur like the others and take this wave before the others find out that it's coming, I would say.
So Stephen, if you think about setting up a company for this, give me a call. So
Wait, you have a job already. Stay where you are.
So yeah, so we moved to the next question, which is a very interesting question. I think I'll pick everyone's brain here. From Christopher, who asks, interoperability by design is a wonderful goal in theory, but how can it be realistically implemented in practice? If we take the common European data spaces, for instance, what activities is the DSSC undertaking to ensure alignment and compatibility between the technical governance components being developed? Wouldn't it be wise to ensure that the different deployment projects are aligning efforts a priori to avoid having to work on interoperability after the components are deployed? That's $1 million question, they would say, and I wonder who wants to take this one.
I would ask Maaria to perhaps comment first on the first statement, interoperability by design. Is really that ambitious or not? And then I can give a few hints of what's coming in terms of DSSC helping fixing that.
Yeah, perhaps I agree that it is an ambition objective, but I really think that we have already started something that can enable it. And it has started from the sharing lessons learned and integrating them into the frameworks and components that are useful for practical development. And of course, this is not something that happens overnight, but it would take time. But I still think that it's something that is worth for aiming at. So really something that can be can be a matter of success or failure issue here.
And there's no shame in being ambitious. In terms of practically what the DSSC can do, is part of what we are doing already and something that will happen in 2025. So what we're doing already, of course, is writing through your help the assets that you know were already, the blueprint and everything else that create a sort of a book of knowledge with relation to what the European Commission through us expects the data spaces to align towards. It's a bit of a kind of a soft power kind of thing. Nobody will come to you and say, nah, you're not compliant, give the money back. No, that's not happening yet. At the same time, we know we want to help the Commission go in that direction. One of the assets in the portfolio of the DSSC is something we call the maturity model. We did not use it that much yet, perhaps because it was a bit early, but the idea of the maturity model is to give you, by the end of next year, I would say indicatively, a kind of a quantifiable criteria by which you can measure a data space against the expectation of the Commission through the compliance or conformity, perhaps a strong word, to what is described in our assets, to the respect of legislation in Europe, to the fact that perhaps the kind of functionality you design in your data space can actually be deployed on Simple, the European Union middleware and data space software distribution. So you put all of this together, and very soon you will have a kind of a good rule of thumb to understand if you are aligned. I don't want to use words inappropriately. I mean, many of you sometimes ask us, what does it take to be a compliant common European data space? It's a strong statement. We don't want to divide the world in good and bad. We surely want to suggest you what the right direction is And it is in the powers of the Commission, progressively, like they do, to a little at a time push in the right direction with the instruments they have available.
Thank you, Gianfranco. I don't know if anybody wants to add anything on this point. Otherwise, we can move to the next question. I know Cristoph at one point has to jump to another event. So there is a question directly to you, Cristoph. So I will skip to this question directly. From Ji Yong Jung, who's asking, my question goes to Cristoph Mertens. As an MBA student, I'm fascinated by the potential of data spaces to revolutionize business practice and unlock entirely new possibilities. I'd like to disprove the Sarah for my thesis, but I haven't quite pinned down a specific angle. From your perspective, what would be a compelling topic to investigate that connects data spaces with business innovation and strategy? Perhaps something aligned with emerging trends or a key challenge a business face today, and where can I get the most relevant information?
So, thank you for this question. Let me think. So first of all, I was involved in guiding students to their MBAs and these kind of things close to university work. I'm not any longer. So I guess that would be a great question for Professor Boris Otto, for example. Maybe Gianfranco, you can also take this one to your next lineup. I think he will have an entire book of good topics that you could explore in this context. Besides that, so I mean, I think the magic in this lies in the fact that, also from what I presented, data spaces might be an innovative concept. Business models are something that we're dealing with since decades, and bringing this together in order to see what kind of business model frameworks work for this innovative concept. What can we apply from very well-known areas like platform economy to the data spaces theory and practice? That is something that Gianfranco asked me about what to do next. What I would love to see as a next iteration of such a paper. And I think also it leaves enough room for MBAs and other kind of academic work to write academic papers. So also what I presented is not an academic AAA rated paper. It was something where we thought our community is doing great work. We need to let the world know about it. I think, I don't know if you're working in economy or more from a technical background, but in either way, it's more than interesting to bring two sides together here in your work. And Gianfranco will help you out to also have more closer contact to the professors that we have in our ecosystem to come up with a good topic, maybe. And
actually, I have a question of my own on that, that I see, particularly in Europe, but it must be not just a European thing, that many is let's say, slowing down some of adoption. Many have been asking me since like 5 years ago, how to, at the same time, being able to work with others in a data space without triggering concerns around anti-competitive behaviors. So if you want a more specific research question, that's a very good one that I believe has not been solved. I know for sure that policymakers on the European side are aware, but they also didn't find a solution yet. And I'm sure the other parts of the world have the same exact problem. How can we work together with my competitors without necessarily having the police coming and look for me, arguing that perhaps I'm exchanging confidential information for carteling, for example. That's a big problem. We need at the same time being able to collaborate also within competitors without necessarily triggering those kind of concerns that are literally scaring many organizations out there that perhaps cannot hire a dozen lawyers to help them fix it.
So thank you very much, Cristoph. I think also we saw that Ji Young had volunteers also to the chat. So that's good to know that we can be such an educational resource. I think I would like to take this occasion to thank Cristoph for the presentation, and because he have to drop to another important event. So We will, to the audience, if you have a specific question to Cristoph, you can reach out to us at this following email address. I will leave it to you in the chat, and we will be happy to forward. Oh, sorry, I didn't write it to everyone.
I think also when you share the slides, my contact details should be in there. So feel free to reach out to continue this discussion and point me to frameworks that will bring this topic to the next level. I'm really looking forward to do this work also together with you as community in the next year. And so already goodbye from my side. I'm looking forward.
Thanks again, Cristoph.
Bye-bye.
And we do have another question, last question I think we received, which is, what's the best organization to connect final companies with use cases with tech providers?
So, you know, the closest that comes to mind to this may be something that DSSC does, and also together with the IDSA, that is something we call the Data Space Radar. It's a catalog of data spaces and use cases with relation to data sharing that you may use as a reference in doing that kind of investigation. It started as an experiment a couple of years ago. Perhaps the data is volunteered from the data spaces being listed there. So sometimes, let's say, the quality we may argue a little about. At the same time, maybe a good starting point for you to start doing that exploration. It also offers itself literally to be curious, to click from one place to the other, and investigate one sector, investigate one country, and perhaps find some of the contacts you need. In general, also the industry associations are usually a good starting point if we ask for help. Several of those are also part of the DSSC. So perhaps just start the investigation from the radar. I will post the link in the chat in a second, and then take it from there. If I answer your questions, I hope I did.
I think you did very well as per usual. We do have another question, which is more of a suggestion to us, and this is why we do this event, to welcome all the suggestions of how we can improve. And this specifically comes from Christopher, who is saying, on the topic of business models, if we think about moving from theoretical analysis of business model to concrete business opportunity, has the DSSC thought about developing pitches with concrete value proposition for different stakeholders? Something like why you should get involved and what's in it for you. This could help articulate value, move data spaces beyond the political vision. I think we deal with it on a daily basis. It's one of the core of our works. But Gianfranco, I don't know if you wanna add something
And
to it.
It's not just us. So let's not forget that there are dozens of data spaces funded by the EU to explore the individual sectors. So some of what you're asking is already perhaps what others have been working on for the last 1 year and a half or two. So say each data space specific to a sector, say agriculture, just to make an example, have been exploring this, particularly in the so-called exploratory stage of development, what the first round of projects in the Digital Europe program was started from. The capital of knowledge developed is not lost. Some of it is actually in the library of the DSSC, because we also act as a sort of archive for all the projects. So you can dig into that. I will check the link for you in a second. Alternatively, you're right, we may simply rely on us. There's a general trend among our colleagues that, particularly for the future, so let's say this remaining time with the project, we may need to get a bit more dirty, let's say, closer to where the actual challenges of finding those business cases, those business models are. We are aware of that in the team, and probably in January, we will do some kind of looking ourselves in the mirror and decide what to change to also address the kind of challenge you described. But let me find the link for you for the archive.
Thank you very much, Gianfranco. I do not see any other questions in the chat. So I would like to start thanking, well, Cristoph was ready to thank profusely. Thank again, Gianfranco, for the help. Thank you, Maaria, for the presentation. To the audience, thank you for taking the time just close to Christmas to attend this webinar. We hope you will enjoy all the resources that we posted in the chat. We will also post on our LinkedIn channel recording of this webinar and YouTube, also YouTube, and then the slides will be distributed. So you can always watch what we said and all the questions. And so thanks for attending. I take this chance to wish you a Merry Christmas. And have very joyful Happy New Year. We will resume immediately the webinars at the end of January, so stay tuned for the next one. And with this, I will thank you again, and I will conclude this webinar as we stand. So thanks again.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you.